I'm Sandy Schreck for LBR Educates, and today we're going to create a design using the Midnight Orb from Smithers Oasis. We just have a simple black plastic container that's a reusable container, and we're going to create lines within this composition. So here you can see an example of what we're going to be making. This one's a little bit more garden-like, and today we're going to make one that's a little bit more elegant. So to start off with, I'm utilizing the variegated aspedistra. So we want to create strong lines going diagonally on this piece. And so I'm just going to be able to use this aspedistra. You can see has statement lines on it already built in. And so I'm going to come in here. So to start off with, you can see that I'm creating a strong diagonal line. Then we're going to come in and add some additional loops. So we can, on the larger ones, you can just alter the aspedistra and create different textures within your composition. And so we can just come in and you can see that I'm utilizing some of the different pieces to just tie that all together. And then I'm going to just come in with a secondary one from one side to the other. Then what we're going to do is come in, we're going to be using the cremins. And now these are the Magnum cremins, so they got a little bit big, but we do want to tell you about a new product that's back on the market. It's called Petal Proofer. And with cremins, sometimes they pop. When you put them in and you put other flowers in, sometimes they will end up shattering. So the Petal Proofer is just sprayed on the back of the flower here, and it will help it to kind of adhere to each other, those petals, so that you eliminate that potential for shattering. The other thing that I do is I don't put them in until I am about ready for them. So I'm going to create the structure and the base ahead of time. But what I do is think about a fist is about the size of that Magnum or Cremin. So I'm going to do that right now visually for myself to be able to say, okay, this space, I'm not going to put other flowers. I don't need to hide any more mechanics and everything because those flowers are going to cover that. So I'm going to leave some of the orb exposed. And so we're just going to come in and do some basing here. Got a couple of the Playa Blanca roses that we're going to come in with, and just bringing those down to one side. And then I'm going to come in with some other textural elements. So I've got carnations here, and you can see that one's opened a little bit more. This is the way they came. They're a little bit tighter, but in order to open them up a little bit and get more coverage, what I'm going to do is just rip this calyx right here. Just being careful not to pull the petals out from their point of attachment right there. But I am just coming in and ripping that calyx, and you can see how that opens up so much more, and you're going to get a lot more coverage. And so I like to put a couple together as my basing, and just say it real fast. And you got a couple hydrangeas, and so it can be a less expensive sub that will give you that textural influence of the texture of a hydrangea, but for a little bit less money. I do have a mini green hydrangea that I'm going to use too as well, and we're going to come down right into like a visible area there. And then another textural contrast is the green trick dianthus. So now we're going to come in here and come over to the other side and put some of that in. there. Oh, we lost half that flower, huh? That happens sometimes. You can save that green trick dianthus for your corsages. So we're going to come in. So because I went into that hole there, I'm going to go into a different hole so that that way I don't have the flower not make a connection with the foam. And then next we're going to come in with some calla lilies. And this is going to start to extend this on. So you can see my textural influences are all kind of basing there, remembering I'm going to come in with those 2 cremins up on top there. And so now I'm going to add some depth and dimension on here. So I'm going to come in with my callas, and the foam on the Midnight Foam is a standard foam. So you do want to get your fingers right in to feed that calla stem right into the foam. So I'm going to go to the point of insertion here, and so you can see, like, pretend this hand's a foam. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to walk my fingers up that calla as I push it in so that I get a good insertion. If I try to push from afar, I'm going to break it. And I want to get a good insertion and get some tension and dimension out of these. And so if you just walk your fingers up that calla stem, you're able to get that inserted and have it be a good insertion going into that orb. So we're using 2 on each side, just coming back and forth. So you can see that elegant line, and I've brought it along as repetition with my aspedistra line that I have coming in. All right, so let's just come in, have a few just green buttons that I'm going to come in and just add a little grouping, little family here of those. That's to add that mix of long-lasting flowers. You can see I'm using carnations and dianthus, but for the customer, the chrysanthemums and such are going to really give a strong, longer life to this design. So brought that here again. I'm coming diagonal across, and then I've got the white roses over here, so you can see the strength of that. So I have 2 white hypericum, and I'm going to bring those over to this side. So then I have the white callas, white roses, and then the cream hypericum that come over here. So I'm balancing all those things. And then I'm going to have my 2 white cremins that come in the middle. And so at this point, I'm really just doing some of the exterior flowers. So now is when I'm going to put my cremins in. And these are the Magnum. So I do want to put them in and have them not be flat so that I can't touch them both. I want it to have dimension, so I'm going to set up one a little bit higher than the other. And so we're going to come in here that they kind of add that textural influence. And you can see, like there, we have that green trick. I can, if I really look in there, I can see some of the Midnight Foam, but otherwise from afar, it's just a shadow. And I have a few more foliage accents that I'm going to add. And we're also going to add some additional line flowers here with some of the Veronica. And so the Veronica has that directional quality as well, that we kind of have that repetition coming from the calla lilies. So this extends it up to a little bit different level. And so we're going to come with these in 3 different directions. And, oh, we can put that away. And so this then is an implied line that your mind's eye is going to connect. So we're putting them into a triangle pattern. So you see the 3 points, and you have all of this other stuff going on, but we have these dancing above, but connecting for my own personal eye, I'm going to make that connection with the implied line and see that. And then I go right down into my focal area. And then we're just going to add just a few more dancing flowers and just adding a little bit more depth and dimension to the side here. I've got a couple scoops. I'm going to come out right there with, and then if we do it on one side, we're going to come to the back and do it on the other side. And so we're going to have that repetition that goes back and forth with your eye. So we're bringing those 2 here, those 2 there, and now you can just see how much depth and dimension that adds. Lastly, we want to add a little bit of decorative foliage. Now, if I added this whole fern leaf in, it would really add a lot of dominance to it. So I'm actually going to strip it a little bit and doing some tailoring and make it a little bit finer. And then we're just going to come in and add those tips a little bit more, less there. So the arrangement is as big as the tips are out. So right now, what I'm adding is kind of perceived value. And so I've got a few of the pieces of fern that are really going to add that dancing and increase the perceived value on this composition. And then bring one right up into the center there. And then lastly, I have some variegated lily grass, and this right here, I kind of lay 3 pieces together and then use my finger and to just use a little bit, create a little bit of motion. And I'm going to just come together and stick those 3 in together because it's a lot easier. These sticking in alone take a lot of time. So I want to come in and be efficient with my insertions. And so I'm just going to come in, and so what we're doing is coming off that center line a little bit, but I am repeating that line through there. And then my last ones are just going to connect those right through the center. Coming in right here. So now you can see how we started with more of a smaller composition, and then adding all of that depth and dimension and perceived value that we have coming in by extending the value on this piece with some different foliages and some line material dancing above. Still has that transparency, so it can be a centerpiece at a dinner or any kind of event. So I'm Sandy Schreck for LBR Educates, and I hope I've inspired you to create some fabulous florals.